Hello, everyone, and welcome to At Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer, and welcome to our guest, Tom Steyer, founder of Farallon, investor, presidential candidate, author, activist. Great to see you.
Andy, it's nice to see you too.
So I want to talk to you about your new book, Cheaper, Faster, Better, How We Will Win the Climate War. Now, you've been concerned about climate change for a long time. What's different now? Why are you writing this book for this moment?
Well, I'm writing this book to try and change the way people perceive the climate issue. I'd say the two big memes around climate are, one, this economy is run on fossil fuels and always will be. I don't believe that for a second. And secondly, we're in a doomsday scenario. There's nothing we can do but throw up our hands. I don't believe that for a second. I think what's true is that we have a very serious problem, and the means to solve that problem are here. And in fact, we will solve this problem. We will do it successfully. The question is how fast. But if we understand that this is an opportunity for us to build our economy and create a much healthier, safer future for all of us, I think it's a chance for us to look at this as an opportunity and really to think, okay, we have to pull up our socks and do something, so let's pull up our socks and get to work.
There's a couple of facets here that are intriguing in that some people say, it's not the private sector's job, it's the government's job, number one. And then number two, yeah, if you want to get involved, it's just a money pit. Don't think of this as a place to make money. Can you address both of those issues?
Yes. In terms of the private sector and the public sector, I mean, one of the myths in America is there's such a thing as a free market. In fact, the public sector, governments, all markets have rules. And so the rules that a government puts in place, it used to be possible in the United States to employ a 12-year-old for a 14-hour day and pay him less than $1. Now that's illegal because society decided that's not okay. So in every one of these instances, the rules about what is permissible, what is good for society, are set by the government. But having said that, what scales in this world is profits, businesses. That's actually the engine for solving problems across our society, and that's really what capitalism is. And that is what's going to solve this problem. It's going to be people creating cheaper, faster, better products that other companies and people want to buy. And so we change our society because, in fact, we're producing better stuff that people like.
Right. Now, people talk about sustainability, though, and this sort of addresses my second question, which you addressed a little bit, but I want to go further. Sustainability. What about sustainable profits for green businesses? That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if a business isn't profitable, it's not going to succeed. You're not going to change a global problem with a business that doesn't make a lot of money. So the idea that we're doing something nice, no, I don't believe there's a trade-off at all between impact and returns. In fact, I think this transition is a gigantic tailwind to build companies because we have to. But having said that, this is an investment business about making money. That's what I've done for over 40 years of my life. Looked at businesses and figured out which ones are going to make money, which ones are going to grow, which ones are going to be really valuable. That is investing, and that's business. And that's what's going to make this change happen. And that is what's going to make the investors who do a disciplined work with knowledge of this area a lot of money.
You've raised $1 billion, I think, for a fund, Galvanized Climate Solution, to invest in these types of companies. Can you give us some examples of some of these businesses that you either invested in already or are targeting?
I can, but let me take a step back if you don't mind, Andy.
Sure.
We're a multi-strategy firm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we are doing venture and growth, which is the fund that you're talking about. We're also doing real estate. We also have a public market strategy, and we will be coming up with, in the very short term, other investment strategies, which we will hire teams for and raise money for.
Are these all pertaining to sustainability or some not at all?
Galvanized Climate Solutions. It's a multi-strategy firm completely focused on this energy transition.
Got it.
I think I'm going to give you examples.
So the real estate piece would be under that umbrella as well?
Yes. The real estate concept is buy buildings, get them to net zero, and make more money doing it that way than any other way. Right. To show the world, yeah, a big part of the issue here in emissions is buildings. Let's show that having net zero buildings are more valuable and more profitable than other buildings.
Got it. Yeah.
In order to do that, and I will get to specific companies, but you really have got to understand the nature of this business and then do traditional disciplined investing. So that in terms of buildings, you have to know what the technologies are. Well, we've hired engineers and technologists to look at all the new technologies for buildings. We've hired policy people because having a net zero building is worth more in certain jurisdictions than others. If you want to make money, you have to figure out where you're going to get paid. So it's very important to understand the specific technologies and the policies, and we've hired capable people at the company to help the people who are disciplined investors. I'll give you a couple examples quickly.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
About 8% of global emissions come from concrete and cement.
That's a lot.
Yes, and it's all over the world. That is about the developing world, building new stuff, new buildings, new manufacturing plants with concrete and cement. There's a company in Germany which basically using sensors and AI looks at how that soup, which is cement, is made, and real time controls it so that what comes out is not only stronger, but is also much cheaper and reduces emissions by up to 50%. So when I say cheaper, faster, better, here's something that is saving the customer a lot of money within their existing plant. There's a very fast payback, but oh, by the way, it also reduces emissions by 50%. This is a great deal, and that's the point. You're not asking someone to sacrifice for it. You're saying to somebody, if you don't do this and your competitors do, they're going to have much lower costs than you, and that's going to put you at a huge disadvantage. You kind of have to do it.
Right.
I'd give you another example.
Please, yeah.
We're using sensors and satellite technology to look at how different farmers, what the emissions are from different farmers based on where they are and what the methods of farming they're using, so that they can know what their emissions profile is. If you think back to the simplest old business adages, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. If we're going to reduce emissions, you have to be able to know where the emissions are coming from. I spoke to someone who was running the manufacturing at a huge global tech company, and they had just done this. They looked through their whole emissions profile for the first time, and they were shocked to find out where the emissions were coming from. They didn't know. How do you reduce emissions if you don't know where their emissions are coming from? So in both those cases, it's really about information.
Right.
It's really about information, giving people a chance to reduce costs, to make better products, and also to reduce emissions.
Are there opportunities, Tom, for investors in public equities? And these are private companies being bought by your firm. What about the public markets?
Well, we have a public equity strategy, and it's a strategy of engagement. Basically, what we're saying is we believe that the companies that are leading this transition have a huge tailwind, and we believe that that's much stronger than the market believes. The way the market values a lot of these companies is as cyclicals, so that when times are good, they get low multiple because they're assuming it's cyclical. Times will be bad. So they have high multiples when times are bad and low multiples when times are good. We don't see it that way. We see this as an inevitable tailwind, a transition that has to happen. So what we're really doing is saying, we will call the C-suite, the chief executive officer, and say, we're shareholders. We want you to succeed. We have special expertise, domain expertise here, in terms of both the people in engineering, the people in policy, and just understanding this space. We have some suggestions that are free to you to help you do better, make more money, change faster.
And you talk about your passion being climate change, and it has been for a while. Is that because it is a passion, or is it a place that you think is the best opportunity to make money? Or could you be in AI and forget about climate change? It would be even better.
Well, let me say this. I did spend 8 years full time as an advocate for a stronger American climate response. So to a very large extent, over the last, 17 or 18 years, I have felt as if we don't destroy the natural world, this society and this world will produce the greatest life for human beings that has ever been on this planet, better than people can imagine. But we are in a situation where if we don't respond, we could put the natural world in a place where it dominates our thinking and in a very unfortunate way. Having said that, I believe that the investment returns here are going to be extraordinary because we are going to solve this in the marketplace through capitalism with companies that succeed and make a lot of money, making the world better for their customers and for everybody.
You live and work in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and so you're steeped in the culture of that greater metropolitan area. What is the feeling amongst leadership in Silicon Valley when it comes to climate change? How much of a priority is it for those leaders?
Well, it's funny. Being from Northern California, I understand how people around the country think about Northern California. But here's how I think about Northern California, which is a little different. We're data-driven. We respect people who know the facts. We respect people who know the facts and figure out logically what's going to happen next. And we're capitalists. If you look at what part of the country has created huge, successful, global companies, geez, it seems like we've done pretty well. Mm-hmm. If you look at the part of the country that has a number of fantastic universities and colleges, seems like we're doing okay. I view the culture that I come from as one which is logical, scientific, data-driven, and forward-thinking. And that's exactly what we're trying to be, is to look forward and say, what is going to happen? What can we do to participate in the best things? How is the world going to change?
Well, that's a pretty positive view of Silicon Valley and the Bay Area, but there's some people who suggest that Silicon Valley's lost its way in terms of focusing on technology that's not really improving people's lives, not really addressing things like climate change, but doing things that maybe are actually undermining our society, like social media, unintentionally, inadvertently perhaps, but nonetheless with those consequences. What do you think about that?
Well, I think almost anything that you do on a big scale, even if it's mostly good, has some consequences which aren't so terrific. I think we all know that. I would say in the case of almost every technology, it involves huge steps forward with some unintended consequences that people really, if you think about the automobile, we used to have 50,000 people die per year in automobile crashes. Did that mean that we didn't want to have cars? No, we wanted to have cars. If you look at social media, I get the point that people are making about those seem to me to be things that we should have. I said, there's no such thing as a free market. With cars, we mandated seatbelts. Oh my God, seatbelts, that's so restrictive. Actually, it was a good idea and saved a lot of lives. In terms of almost every single business, what we need to do is put in guidelines that companies have to follow to avoid the bad impact on society. And that's true in every instance and every new technology. There are going to have to be rules written that reflect the fact. If you look at climate, why do we have this problem? It's a simple rule, is that it turned out people were polluting. They didn't know it. They were just trying to produce cheap, powerful energy, absolutely increased our standard of living immeasurably. They weren't trying to pollute. They were trying to make a buck and produce something that everybody wanted. But it turned out they were polluting.
I mean, you talk about cyclicality. There seems to be some cyclicality, though, in business writ large's perspective of accepting climate change goals when it comes to investing. And I'm talking about, of course, there was a big move, say, by Larry Fink of BlackRock to encourage companies to have guidelines along these lines. And then there was pushback, maybe from states, red states, if you will. That seems to be a bit of a cycle. Do you think that that's inhibiting the war on climate change? Backlash?
I want to say a couple things.
Sure.
One is, look, there's no question that there is a meme out there that we can never get off fossil fuels. I started by saying that's really the pushback that Larry Fink got.
Or they don't want to. It's not that we can't. It's like, by the way, we have a vested interest in fossil fuels too. Right?
And so that was the pushback he got, was people who were saying, you're pushing for a change that we don't like.
Right.
And that, now, having said that, let me make another point. Texas, which has been one of the states where the elected officials have been most open about disliking whatever they think ESG is and the idea about renewables. In fact, Texas has tripled its solar installations in the last 3 years, and it's supposed to go up another 35% this year. Texas produces more wind energy than any other state in the United States by far. Why would they do that? Because it's cheaper, faster, and better. They're making decisions to buy the best product in the marketplace, while the elected officials are talking about something totally different. So in fact, I get that there is political pushback, and that's part of the reason I wrote this book, is to say, no, you're thinking about this wrong. This is a chance for the United States to lead the world in many ways, including economically, and if we miss this chance, we will miss an economic revolution, which people who we think of as our competitors, specifically China, will gladly take. And we will be sitting in the backseat while they're driving the car.
Is this an or, though, Tom? I mean, in other words, is it like you either do sustainable energy or fossil fuels, or do we change gradually? You know, sometimes students in college campuses like, end it all right away. Other people say that's not realistic. Where do you stand?
I want to first start by thanking you for equating me with college students. I know I
Yes.
look that age, but I'm slightly
yes.
older,
Okay,
it turns
yeah.
out. Obviously, we're not getting off fossil fuels today, tomorrow, next year. This is something that's got to happen over time. But I want to make 2 points about it. One is, when we have this conversation, we should be talking about what's going on in the natural world. Something is going on. So for the people who don't follow those statistics, let me say that the last 11 months have been the hottest of each of those months in history in recorded time, and probably the hottest of those months at any time when humans were on the face of the earth. So what we're seeing is the world is heating up faster than people expected. We're seeing events around the world happening with a frequency and severity that no one expected. So when you say, is this going to be all of the above? Yes, it's going to be all of the above for a while. But we have to make this transition. That's what came out of the UN conference on climate in Dubai in December, was every single country in the world, including Saudi Arabia, agreed this is a transition away from fossil fuels. The faster we do it, the more we limit human suffering. So when people say, you know, we're going to do a lot of renewables, but we're not going to reduce fossil fuels, if you're data driven, that doesn't work. Right. That's not, it just doesn't add up. That's 2 + 2 is 7. No, it turns out that's not right. There are facts in this world, and if people are making statements that don't accord with the facts, we need to go back and look at what's underlying, what's going on in the real world, and act on that.
Right. And final question, Tom. I'm curious. I started off by doing this long introduction of all the things that you do. How would you describe yourself? Investor, political activist, climate change activist, author, Renaissance man?
Look, I'm a professional investor.
Professional investor.
That's what I am. And if you think about that, what does that mean? It means I spend my time looking forward and trying to figure out what are the good things that can happen, how can I participate in those, can happen economically, can happen in terms of impact, and what are the things that could be really bad, how do we try to avoid those, how do you personally try to escape those? And so that's, you know, I am very much someone looking to the future and trying to participate in the best parts of the future. And when I think about our society right now, we're at a crossroads where we need to, in my mind, rediscover our own abilities to succeed. To me, as somebody who grew up playing team sports my whole life, winning is really fun. As Americans, let's get back to winning. That is something, when you win, everyone loves everyone on the team. That's just a rule. If you have an undefeated team, you love every member of that team, and they love you too. As Americans, we need the confidence to go back to pulling together and recognizing how smart and tough and patriotic the people in Texas are, how smart and tough and patriotic the people in California are, and understand that everybody is really trying to get to the same place, and we may be coming at it with different attitudes. That's okay. It's a democracy. You get to disagree. The truth is, in this case, we are much stronger together, and it actually will create a much better lifestyle, but beyond that, a much better country and a much happier country.
That's a great message. Professional investor, Tom Steyer, thank you so much for joining us.
Andy.
This is at Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer. We'll catch you next time.